That one cohort, though, does represent the oldest continuous civilization in the world, more than 65,000 years. Shouldn't they have a special recognition and voice?
Well, I mean, you could argue that there is recognition, and I think everyone has always said we would like to see them recognised and acknowledged that history and the true history of Australia, that they were here first, and their significant and long established culture that should be recognised. But what we're talking about is actually establishing a body which let's cut to the chase, will become a bureaucracy that has direct ear of government executive, and as Professor Megan Davis writes, the RBA, why shouldn't they be talking to the RBA? Others have also said they should be talking to the Chief of Army. And there is no like organisation that I'm aware of anywhere. And when you have human rights commissioners coming out saying this actually potentially goes against the UN Declaration of Human Rights, where everyone should be treated equally.
When you look at the polling at the moment, it would suggest that a majority of Australians, at least at this stage, are supportive of the voice. Do you fear that you might be out of touch with the majority of Australians right now?
Well, I think it's also, when you look at the polling, it's quite a soft support. And I think people are also, they support the intent, they support recognition, as I've said, so do most of us support recognition. And that's what a lot of people still think the voice is, a means of recognising Indigenous Australians in our Constitution. But as we go further and as people start to realise the extent of the powers of the voice, and that it is not a benign group of people who will meet 3 times a year in Canberra, it will actually become a massive bureaucracy that will insist on, and Professor Megan Davis has written in The Australian, that once established, politicians will not be able to shut the voice up, despite what the Prime Minister says, that Parliament will have primacy and Parliament will legislate what the voice can and can't do. I think as proponents like Professor Davis speak more and more, I think more Australians are focusing on what it will actually mean, and their concerns are being rising to the surface.
If the government were to compromise, if the Prime Minister were, say, to remove reference to executive government in the amendment, the constitutional amendment, shouldn't the coalition be willing to say, okay, they've compromised to a degree, if they amend the words and then re-look at the proposition here?
Well, I think one of the problems is that the Prime Minister has made it perfectly clear that he's not willing to do that. Despite saying last week that the coalition needed to bring forward a suggestion of what changes we would be happy with. Certainly, Julian Leeser did that on Monday when he made his speech to the press club, and he said take out clause 2 of the proposed amendment. There's no signs from the Prime Minister that he would be open to changing. Indeed, the Prime Minister went against his own Attorney General's advice to remove the executive government from that clause of the draft amendment. So I think for all the talk about, well, where would you land if you could negotiate, the Prime Minister has shown very clearly that he's not even willing to answer the 15 questions sent to him by Peter Dutton. And so he's not genuine in his statements that he would be open to negotiation.
Deputy Nationals Leader Perin Davey, thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Appreciate your time today.